Thanks, Leslie. And we have Deputy Mayor here, Carter, that's standing in for Mr. Watson today. 3 council members present. And we have our first item, which is just what we were chatting about, right?
Approval of minutes.
What's that?
Approval of minutes.
Oh, yeah, they're approved. Yeah. Department reports. Is that the parking thing?
Sure, yes. Why don't we go ahead and hit on that? We'll start off with parking stuff, and then that way, sir, you don't need that. Stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't like. So I just wanted to share with the committee some comments I've been receiving on one area in particular where we instituted some parking prohibitions. Because this was a council action, and I've been getting a lot of comments about we need to look at this and perhaps change things. I wanted to bring those comments to you and see if there was something that you as the committee would like to recommend moves forward for council discussion or potential revisions to code. This has to do, on the map that I gave you, you'd be looking at the area. You can see where the yellow balloon kind of points to Allen York Park. We're going to be looking at 76th Street Court East, which is just to the east of there. It comes off of West Taps. Currently, 76th Street Court East is in code is qualified as a no parking street all the way through to the end of the cul-de-sac. And then it's a little hard to see, and I apologize, I should have blown this up a little bit more, but 202nd and 77th are both listed there or shown there as permit parking.
So is it currently prohibited to park there?
It is. The code what way
Did we do that recently?
Yeah, so that was part of the changes that were made back in.
Did we reach out to any of the? I felt like an idiot when I got an email on this. I'm like, I should have actually gone and maybe talked to people before I did.
So here's some of the issues where that's concerned, and I have as well talked to some of the residents and offered my apologies for the way some of this had moved forward. But at the time, when we considered these areas and then they were voted on, we were coming just off of the near riot that we had at Allen York Park, and the decision that had been discussed was that there was a need to do something here as quick as possible. There was a lot of concern about the behavior that we were seeing there, the way we were seeing people handle themselves at the park, the number of people showing up at the park. And so a whole suite of changes regarding parking and park use went through at the same time. So to answer your question specifically, no, we didn't do such a good job reaching out to people and talking about them in advance.
Hey or no?
Yeah, I mean, we, from public services department perspective, we certainly could have done a better job there. And lesson learned, we will make sure to do that next time. But this was one of those changes that was proposed. The thinking behind this is that, and the concern is that while I would acknowledge that I have had several comments come from this area that there has not been an issue with parking, people encroaching on those streets up till now. With the institution of paid parking before too long, there is concern that there will be people who want to attend the park who don't want to pay for parking. And so you will see them move further out into surrounding neighborhoods. And so our desire there is to help try to control that so that folks that do live in that area aren't impacted by that. Do we know that's going to happen with any certainty? Well, no, because we haven't gotten there yet. But it certainly is a fear. And so that was behind some of the decisions behind where we ended up bringing forward these prohibited parking and permit parking areas. I have had, going back to this particular area, I have had a couple great conversations with residents in that area who have some concerns, and they brought up some good points. One of those is that on 76th Street Court East, perhaps we could consider shortening that no parking area. So instead of going from West Taps all the way out to the cul-de-sac, it would be from West Taps to 202nd. And then it would be permit parking beyond that.
That's what I was thinking there, right? Because then there's not that many homeowners.
It does. It certainly gives them the ability with the city permits that we issue for residential parking zones, the ability to still park on the street and do whatever they would normally like to.
So, and this is now permit parking. That same resolution made this permit parking, right?
This is no parking. The red is no parking, and then this is yellow is permit parking. Yeah. So this, what I'm talking about, would change this area
Yeah.
to permit park to yellow.
What? Okay.
That's kind of what I thought was gonna happen to begin with. I didn't know, because I knew that we obviously wanted to create a, a no parking for the bus stop zone.
Where?
Bus stop.
So there's a bus stop on 7th Street. It's right up in. Oh,
Today, that is.
You mean a school bus stop?
School bus stop, yeah.
True. Public schools.
It's not right at the end of the road.
Yeah.
So I know for some of I for public safety, for example, there's a little bit more back and forth with folks who come in. I don't know if the desire to take comment is usually during public comment at council meetings. I did mention to some of the folks that I talked with over in this Ridge West, Ridge. The Ridge. I always get confused with
I
this
do
one.
too.
Yeah. I did extend an invitation to them to come in and hear our conversation today, which is why, your last name again, sir?
Blazy.
Blazy, which is why Mr. Blazy's here today. And we were expecting that their HOA president
Yeah,
was also
she is on her
going
way.
to
She was just delayed in traffic.
Good. So staff has done their presentation there, so Mr. Blazy, right? For the record, right?
Yep.
What's your address?
7610, 202nd.
Okay, thank you.
I'm the third house after the right turn.
And that, and your concern is that you can't park there?
My concern is that, as far as definitely my neighbors on the cul-de-sac, they would lose all of their street parking.
Okay.
Another concern I have is it's really a little one. I think that it can be handled with the engineer later. I think my front yard is the only one sign in front of it. It can be moved across the street, in my opinion,
Sure.
Just for visibility. Another issue that I have with the permits is that if I read everything correctly, we would only be issued one street parking permit per household.
My understanding is it's currently the city clerk's office and issues one pass for each vehicle that belongs to that resident
Right, and then one visitor's pass.
and one visitor's
So the
pass.
problem, I'm also on a committee for several charities, and I hold meetings at my house. And that is an additional 4 to 5 cars for each of those meetings. How am I as a resident going to not have automatic tickets for my charity board members? Because a lot of them are 88, so they're mobility challenged.
Yep.
So they've always just parked right across the street, and it's always been that a bit an issue.
Yep.
And now they're gonna have to park a neighbor, and I'm gonna have to shuttle them.
So I think you bring up a good point here, which highlights something that's missing from our permit program. And so I don't have a solution for you right now, but definitely willing to engage with you outside of this meeting
Okay,
to come up
absolutely,
with
yeah.
a solution.
Because I know
I
a
have
lot of
another
my neighbors
one.
are families, and they tend to have large family gatherings.
Yeah,
And we also use that cul-de-sac area as a parking for larger parties.
Yeah.
For overflow, so. As a neighborhood, every neighbor knows it.
yeah. No, I think it's a great point. And obviously we wouldn't want to be in the situation where we're issuing tickets for people who are coming to visit a friend at their house.
I'll be
right
honest,
there.
my first reaction when I got the letter in the mail was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And it looked like a cash grab by the city.
Yeah.
Knowing that now I'm hearing that you're planning on putting in paid parking up at Allen York, I can understand how you would be concerned about the overflow into neighbors, because I come from, my hometown is Wichita, Kansas.
Ah.
So 300,000 people. I know about neighbors who are getting taken up by like 4th of July parties,
Sure.
festivals and stuff like that. So I understand where that thought was coming from. I would have appreciated talking to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we could have expressed this stuff. When I looked at the drawings from the construction crew, they were stamped in May. And I'm like,
I didn't think it was.
this is 3 months after these stamps. Why wasn't anybody talked to?
That was a failure.
Yeah.
I'll admit that. When I got your email, I was like, oh, well, that was the dumbest thing I've done in a while. Right?
No, and I understand what we were coming into summer, and I actually have known some people that have gotten into fights down there, so I know that it can get out of hand, and I know crowd control. I was a Marine for 13 years. I've worked security in the hospitality comp, so I know all about crowd control. So I understand those issues. It was just more like it came out of left field.
Yeah.
So I immediately went on defensive and getting woken up by a water drilling truck in my front yard. I was like,
They're hydro excavating.
what's going on?
So certainly, you and I can talk outside
Yeah.
this room about potential solutions for a permit
Yeah.
and then for the sign placement as well.
No,
when our
I
city
would
engineer gets
fully
back.
support the city if you guys chose to. Hey, and speaking of Amanda, she's right here.
Hi, you guys. I'm sorry. I'm late.
I think
First day of school.
Yeah.
I'm a little frazzled.
I think the entire neighborhood would be supportive if we were to change that restricted parking to that corner.
Yeah.
So it didn't deny my neighbors the ability to park in front of their house.
And I'm, obviously it's council that takes the final action, but I'm certainly willing to work on. It's ultimately, if the code is to be changed, the council needs to provide that final approval. But I'm happy to draft code changes that would make that change right there so that can be done. And then, like I said, we can work outside of this meeting on the permit program and the sign placement.
Right.
And Amanda and
Yes.
Ryan
Oh, hi.
Johnson.
Good to meet you.
Happy to come out there and meet with you all and discuss that a little bit further. The point of today's meeting is I did want you to have an opportunity to hear that, that we were getting some feedback like that, and at least open it up for further discussion at another date if you all believe there are other changes that need to be made. I just thought we might as well be trying to go down this path all at one time and considering this stuff instead of just getting comments that dribble in kind of one at a time over a period of 6 months. Just to give you a status update, the city, as Mr. Blasey was mentioning, city clerk's office did send out letters to all the folks that live in these areas to let them know that permits would be required and so on. Public Works has the signs, has installed the anchors for those signs. I asked them to not put the signs up until after this meeting today, just in case there was anything big that came out of this that I'd need to be aware of. From a social media perspective, we've been working on some stuff with paid parking. Don't know that we've put anything out additionally specific of addressing these parking changes on social media yet, but certainly that would be something that we would want to go ahead and start rolling out to let people know. We are fortunately past the peak season. I would anticipate that signs would go up, but we would not begin considering enforcement until there's been time to properly have some of these conversations, get the signs up, get people used to them. Honestly, I don't anticipate that there's going to be any huge problems with parking at all until we start to back to the park then.
With the new ball field across the way, when that parking lot gets full, they do naturally just park because it's such a nice walk across that crosswalk there. So I did see that this weekend. I think there was a biking event. That might naturally, but you're right, on the hot days, that won't happen again.
Yeah.
Well, when we're going things, one of the reasons they've done this is that they're instituting paid parking.
How much feedback have you gotten in regards to this from other citizens, other areas as well?
So I definitely had some good interaction with folks from the Ridge.
Yes.
And then staff has received some comments from residents who live on 193rd Avenue East off Bonney Lake Boulevard on the section south of 75th Street East. That has been less than positive, with somebody threatening to throw a rock through one of the windshields of our vehicles, and it's not been pleasant in that area. I think that the most common comment that we've heard so far is, hey, up till this point, we haven't had a problem with parking. And I understand that, but again, the concern is that once paid parking rolls out, we could see a greater impact to these surrounding roads because people will not want to pay.
From our community perspective, we're grateful for the help because the parking has been an issue as far as like litter. I mean, there's beer cans in my yard. And so people aren't, I mean, on a hot day, they literally line both sides of 76 and front of our house. And they block driveways, they block mailboxes. So from our community, we're grateful. We were just hoping for flexibility in allowing the residents to park where there's homes instead of having it be. And then, so I did walk the neighborhood to see the placement of the signs, and Sean's is the only yard that has the sign. So what we were hoping is there's where there's no homes.
The easy solution, what you had mentioned earlier about both ways, an easy solution to that. Like I have in other cities, I've seen permanent parking, and it just literally says both sides with an arrow. And we have one right by our mailbox, which is directly across from Matt's house. If you went to like the property edge, be me in the corner, from one house off the corner, but have those two signs be the both sides, it would, my objections would go.
Yeah, certainly happy to look into that.
The other thing too, speaking of the crosswalk, I'm not sure if you brought this up yet.
The light
Yes.
that you were requesting.
Yeah, now that the crosswalk leads to the park, I was hoping that we could get one of the flashing crosswalk lights, because the cars are not stopping, and the speed's an issue. We've been in contact with the police department, who's trying their best to monitor and limited resources, but it's to the point where children are almost getting hit every time they're crossing. It's a bus stop there as well, so in the city installed a light there for us a few years back, which helps with the lighting. But for the high school and the middle school kids, they get to that bus stop at 6:40 in the morning. It's really dark. And I leave for work at that time, heading down to the high school. And cars do not stop. Like some mornings I have to pull out and just block people to let the poor kids cross.
Oh yeah, people driving up from Eleanor Park headed for Church Lake Road, that long straightaway. I sit on my balcony upstairs at night, and all I hear is engines revving. They think it's a great sprint spot.
The other day we were walking home from the park, and there was a younger family in our neighborhood in front of us, and they had their two kids in a wagon, and they were pulling the wagon. Cars on one side were stopped. The other car was, of course, texting, coming around that corner, like Sean said. They had to run out of the way of the car to not have their kids get hit. They were in the middle of the crosswalk and that happened. So those are the kinds. And I know it won't be a perfect system, but I'm hoping that maybe just that visual could help.
Yeah, it's something, again, I said it a few times, I apologize if it sounds like a typical response. Happy to look into it. There's a couple different solutions available for something like that. It's not a budgeted expense, but certainly it's something that we could consider. And then per direction, Councilmember Swabman, per direction from approval from the council, we could potentially move forward with that as well. So that certainly sounds like there's a need, so happy to look into it. That was all I had on the parking. You have my contact info.
Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused because so the zone parking is going to be a pain, right? When you have guests, right?
Yes, that is one of the
If we
concerns.
have a
that brought
big
up.
gathering, I think that's the only. Is what do we do if we have a Christmas Eve get
Who's
together? We
enforcing?
have one.
How is that enforced?
Yeah.
So as far as like giving tickets out,
Yeah.
Currently the police department handles our parking enforcement, and so it would be up to the police
So
department to enforce that.
It's not going to be a problem if you don't report it. What I'm hearing, right?
And one of the concerns I had was,
Kenna?
because I haven't had a chance to fully read all of the related city ordinances and stuff that were, I'm still reading everything, so I understood that. I want to get a great big picture. Was it thought these would be like dusk till dawn enforcements? Like the park, because the hours of the park are dusk till dawn. If it's an evening thing in the off season, nobody's going to park in the streets at 6 p.m.
Our deputy mayor happens to be a police officer, does a lot of that.
I used to work for Bonney Lake as well, so I can tell you that typically all the parking stuff is complaint based. So it's not something the guys are going out looking for. They have other things they're looking for and driving down dead end roads and writing tickets.
Right.
But if there are complaints, obviously they would go and enforce that.
Okay, so
But I also don't want to speak out of turn. As we have a new police chief coming in, I have no idea what that could look like and whatnot. But I would say typically it's always been. I think there's a way to, and maybe it's a communication issue of, hey, I'm having a party. I'm going to have X number of people over. Okay, we can give you X number of visitor passes for that particular day or something. I don't know what that would look like there.
I mean,
It seemed like that would be.
if it's as simple as photocopying my visitor's pass, that's the easy thing.
Yeah.
Actually, attending party this date on the bottom of the page.
Yeah, if you had a date or something on it or something. I'm sure there's a way, to do that.
We could certainly
Even if
work
we
with the
have like
clerk's
a
office.
template, like I'm sure our HO. Template with a date.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a solution.
Yeah, I'm sure that sounds reasonable.
It's just a concern that myself and some of the neighbors have.
Yeah.
Because like I said,
And
on the
I would
right
have
street,
a
make the left, there's a lot of cars always parked on that street, because it's a lot of large families.
Yeah, I can always. Yeah, my wife and I were like, how would we handle it? Oh, well, we would park, we put our cars on the street, but then there couldn't be more than 2 cars, and then it's like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we could bug the neighbors, and we're like, well, that's not gonna work, and we were just like, yeah, we should just scan it, right? And then, unless there's a real problem, unless you're saying you want it. So I was a proponent to can it until you showed up and said, no, we really appreciate the help.
But it's both sides of the same
Yeah.
coin.
During those hot days,
It's
but it's like we recognize there's
There's gonna be a need.
Yeah.
Now that, like I said, now that I know, my opinion has changed a little bit coming in, knowing that the paid parking is coming in, I can see how that buffer zone is beneficial to my neighborhood.
Right.
So I can see the positives. Without knowing that you guys were switching to paid parking on your part, there was like, why are we doing this? I was
So maybe-
missing the cause.
And maybe that needs to be the bigger issue of just a campaign to let everyone know that, but hey, both there's a paid parking coming to the park, and hey, we are trying to think ahead, take care of the neighborhoods.
Oh, yeah,
And
Next to the knowing the why, which I now know, my other concern was, like I said, I'm involved with charities and I have handicapped people that are part of these boards, and I just want to be able to make sure they can get in my house while getting a ticket.
totally.
Be really nice if the HOA can help.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, if you guys send me, because I'm on the, send me something and we'll pass.
So that's what I have for now. I've got a couple items there on my list. Please reach out to me,
Okay.
and we can set a date. I can grab the city engineer. We're happy to come out, take a look around, talk
Oh,
with
absolutely.
I think
anyone.
you said he's this.
I thought he was gone through
Oh,
tomorrow.
okay,
I'll need to double check that, but if you go ahead and shoot me an email,
Yeah.
as soon as he comes back in,
Okay.
I'll get some.
The city doesn't. Own, right? So it's,
Yeah.
but the towing company makes lots of money. And they don't tow without the police officer.
Yeah, somebody has to direct them to do that, especially on a city street, so it'd have to be a police officer.
Yeah.
So, and it's more than likely gonna be. Right, so.
And if it's not, you're directly gonna be able to talk to the new police chief and say, hey, what are you guys doing over
Yeah.
here? And that's probably a good conversation.
When's your HOA meeting?
our next one is,
Yeah, and maybe have somebody from the city come out and talk
I'll
to
be
you.
glad to.
They're always happy, there's always council. Tell you guys what the local happenings are. That's the only way we get to communicate with.
The value of an election year, I'm interested in. That's humor, and it was intended as humor.
There's always, you live in a smaller city where you have a lot of. My number's on the website, Terry's number's on the website, if you call me, you're gonna get my actual, you're gonna probably get me on,
October 5th. And we normally do, a Zoom.
Oh,
That's even better.
in person only.
And we have your contact info
Yeah.
already?
Yeah, that'd be great if somebody.
Actually, we got pretty good, turnout.
No, our neighborhood's pretty small, we have 48 homes in it, so usually, which is the best. But the annual meeting happens once a year, and that's what this October. So we do get a few homes.
I think we get 6 at our end.
Yeah.
And
We gotta have a certain amount to like meet quorum
Right,
for it.
I tried raising the dues one year to get a quorum. Yeah, that's a bad idea. You will get a quorum,
Yeah,
but they're grumpy.
they'll have a pitchfork.
And I'm finding that I have more time to get involved in things. Work situations change, but I'm trying to get out of an industry that has me working until 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Get more active.
Thanks. There you go. Excellent.
All right,
So
thank
thank
you
you.
guys for your
Thank
time.
you
I
so much.
appreciate
Thank you
what
for
you
coming
do for
down.
the
Appreciate
community.
it, yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Contact the rest.
thank you, Councilmembers.
You're welcome. And discussion for resolution 3177 is our next item, professional services agreement more on-call stuff, right? Don't we have a little one?
Correct. So, Resolution 3177 is seeking your authorization to allow the mayor to sign an amendment with parametrics to amend our current on-call agreement for $8,000 to provide inspection services. Basically, it'd be approving an amendment of $12,800 for additional inspection services. Our staff inspector is going to be going on vacation, so we need this coverage to help us with our current projects that are going on throughout the city, development-related projects. And so, yeah, that's exactly what this is seeking. Approval of this authorization to allow the mayor to sign this amendment.
And I assume that the $2,000 that's left over will cover this next week, well, before we get to city council. That's why it's on the workshop.
So, correct. So exactly, we're at a point here where I think the actual vacation of our staff inspector begins on 8th. And so we won't have another opportunity for council to see this before he leaves, and we need that support immediately when he leaves. As a matter of fact, he's going to be getting together with the consultant prior to him leaving so that he can get him acquainted with the different projects and walk him through things. So, correct, we need this authorization as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm. Where does the money come from?
So, great question. So currently, this is coming from our other professional services line item in our public services center budget. 2,000 was approved as part of the 23-24 biennial budget for the 23 amount for that line item. The 8,000 that was approved to spend from that budget in April of this year expended that $2,000 that was already approved. So between that and the 12.8, there's going to be a budget amendment necessary to cover those additional funds. I've talked with Sherry; she is aware of that and is prepared to include that in the budget amendment that will be moving forward in October.
So we're going to be 20,000 behind.
20,000 in total. Correct. And that's in the budget information section. That's just what that's showing there. The current balance in that line item is $68.91. This additional $20,000, should you give the authorization for the mayor to approve, would take us to a total negative balance of $19,691. So that would be the amount we'd be pursuing in the budget amendment. That line item.
I don't know, right? I mean, somebody listening to this are like, we're spending $12,000, right? We have to go for the, how long is the duration of this contract?
It would be approximately 2 weeks.
Well,
I think it was the 8th
well,
through the
your
20th.
do nothing option is to piss off a bunch of people trying to improve the city.
Right, I get that. I'm thinking through, I thought a lot about this. I was like, it makes sense to do, but what's, okay.
How have we done this before?
We do all the time.
This is what we do all the
This is what we've done previously, yeah, unfortunately.
We always do it. It's a weird thing that we even talk about it. It's like a resource issue at the staff level.
Right.
It's kind of like they got a staffing issue over here they got to deal with, and money.
Right, sure.
Where I can, I will attempt to take someone from our public works staff to help provide some of that coverage, but that's pretty tough to do. I mean, obviously they have a full plate of stuff to get done. I will say that originally this scope included a week's worth of night work, but I did manage to pull somebody from the water utility to provide that nighttime coverage for us. But that did set us back in other areas. And for this duration, being that it's a little bit longer, we would definitely prefer to go this route and use a consultant and let the maintenance worker staff get on with the other stuff they need to be getting done.
We already have some people kind of doing that type of inspection or whatever. They're familiar with us.
The consultant on the consultant side?
Actually,
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
I don't have one.
Okay.
Thank you. Would that be?
It's on your agenda tonight.
That's right.
For discussion.
It is.
So we'll recommend it for approval tonight. See how long that lasts.
Thank you.
Next item, 3176, professional services agreement for IMI. Yay.
Correct. Yes. So this was already approved as part of this CIP effort for sewer for 23-24. This is the contract we're bringing back for further investigative and design services to zero in on a couple locations where we found issues with groundwater and stormwater intrusion into our sewer system. So this would include, these funds would take care of further evaluating the 30-inch clay line that runs right through this portion of our city, actually of the county, going between two sections of our city.
And how deep is that?
I believe that section, that 30-inch clay line is somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 feet. It's on the deeper side as far as.
They make ditch boxes 15 feet.
Yeah, so this particular clay line is 30 years old. It's quite deep in that area.
You'd have stacked on top of it.
So yeah, as far as the protection for the workers, yeah. So if it came time to actually replace that, if that's the option, what we'll look at instead is either pipe bursting or cured in place pipe, where you actually drag a sock liner through it and you use UV light to adhere to the sides of the existing pipe.
Okay.
Something like that. We wouldn't actually, as a last resort, it would be an open cut like pipe replacement. Okay. Yeah. But this contract is like I said, is taking
I think it says like 2,000 feet or something.
Yeah, that would be this right through here, through the poreless thumb, so to speak. So it comes down right off of Church Lake and comes right along the creek. It's in the county, yeah. And then it comes back into the city right about at this point here and runs down to the stations. So that's one, and then the other is up here that we're going to be taking a look at is on 76th, right up in this area. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the video of the 76th, 77th Street location, and there is actively water streaming into that pipe from some failed side sewer.
Where's the 76? I thought that was out here by.
It is.
I thought that was out by the station.
No, it's right. Let me look at the address to be sure. 76th Street to 77th Street toward east. So that's going to be right. It's the cul-de-sac right here.
Okay.
In that area. And that one is definitely, we've got a large I&I issue in that area. We'll need to definitely provide pipe repair there. For this, we're going to do some additional flow monitoring and try to establish exactly where the water is coming from there. The fear is that it could be infiltration coming in. It's right next to Bonney Creek. Yeah. So during the wet time of year, you can imagine there's a lot of water in that area, and there's manholes all along that creek. So hopefully it's something easy, like we just need to provide better lids for our manholes, and it's just coming through the manholes. But we've had staff go out there before in the wet season and look at that, and they've not seen any large amounts of any sort of inflow that way. So
that's a double-edged sword, definitely.
Yeah,
especially this summer. Oddly enough, just more with less water going down there.
Well, I hope not.
You know how that math works.
The hope is that we're going to be able to eliminate contributing water to our sewer system bill that doesn't require being treated. And identifying these areas and then fixing them is what this effort is. So that is this contract.
So there was stuff in there about lift station 9 and that area too, totally out of scope kind of thing that was worked on reconfiguring that so that it goes to the other neighborhoods.
So this scope itself doesn't focus on the actual realignment of the force main, but what this scope does provide is that if funds budgeted for, currently we're assuming it would be a replacement of that 30-inch clay line, if we find that it can be rehabilitated, then some of those design dollars can be reallocated to looking at other. Right. Yeah, so what we're hoping is that some of the design dollars, if we don't need it to design a replacement solution for this, we can use those funds to further evaluate what's going on along that force main out in that area.
They were trying to redirect that to a different.
Correct. And we do have that project actually budgeted in this biennium for design to rerun that force main out of Mountain Creek and south to tap into Chris Lear's new sewer instead of wrapping way around.
Yeah.
So that will be moving forward in 24. So unless there's any questions, I would be asking that this could move forward so we could get this approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how this all works and then tied up with like the development cost stuff. I mean, why, so this is maintenance, not development.
Correct. Yeah, this is maintaining existing sewer system that was installed years ago. So this is pure maintenance.
That still smells funny. Because you gotta maintain everything.
And rebuild, sometimes with the technology of those clay, it was the way to go back then. You would never put it in.
Would not be the material.
Life of on.
Is that like 2003?
Right.
No, this one goes back to, let's see, this would have been 87, something like that.
I'm okay with this. There's just so much to. I was just like, oh my gosh. So we don't have anything to do with. There's not an update to the GMA, the master plan, or anything for sewer, right? Water or sewer. We just updated our water and sewer plan.
The general sewer plan and the water system plan were both recently updated. I think our general sewer plan was approved in 2020. There currently is no statutory requirement for frequency that gets revisited. However, we do have it budgeted for the next biennium, I believe, to look at that plan again.
So will this feed that plan then, these studies?
Certainly, information we obtain from any sort of analysis, such as this, helps inform the next general sewer plan. Certainly, I mean, we're always gathering helpful information with these types of exercises. I'm good.
Okay. We'll move this one forward with recommendation.
Thank you.
This is a consent item? Okay, consent agenda?
On the 12th?
Yeah, please, thanks. Next item with authorization of a weed whacker.
A really expensive weed whacker. Yeah.
Self-driving.
Yeah. So there in the 23-24 budget, part of the approved ENR replacement schedule was to replace 4 pieces of equipment that had reached the end of their service life. At the time that we were putting the budget together, the quote received for that replacement equipment, which would be a new tractor and a sidearm mower, was $189,000, almost $190,000.
When was that?
That would have been in late summer, fall of 2022, something like that. When we went to requote it to move forward with the purchase, the price increase that we were seeing was on the order of $46,515 for a new total of $236,000. Obviously, that's quite a significant increase, and wanted to bring that forward to the committee to receive your approval to be able to move this forward so that we could complete the purchase. This would be accounted for as well in Sherry's budget amendment.
So this would come out of general fund.
This would come out of ER&R funds, which is a special purpose fund.
But the additional, where's the additional money come from?
In talking with Sherry, it sounds like we have the cash in ER&R fund to make up this stuff.
We just didn't budget it for
this full amount because at the time.
And when we get quotes, we don't get guaranteed for so long. I know 2022 is a long time.
Typically 30 days.
Right. We're out of the window. Dang it.
Way out.
Yeah.
We're
like down the street.
Yes.
So is the current mower broke?
The current mower is not broke. I believe it still operates. It's just requiring a lot more maintenance. It is deteriorating. We do have issues with it. I need staff to elaborate further on that.
Is that like this is a replacement?
This is a replacement. So the other one would be surplus and then out to pasture.
So is it possible that, so why did we choose this one that all of a sudden these guys are jacking us up for 25% more in 2 years?
So it's the size of
I'm
tractor.
a little used here, right? It's like 25% more.
This is
And
all
You have
and
cars and
we're
stuff
seeing-
like that, right?
I-
It's ridiculous.
You should, you know, some of the costs we're seeing.
You know, I drive a 98 Ranger, so I don't understand that problem.
It's across the board. We're seeing it with patrol vehicles. We're seeing it with our frontline trucks. I mean, it's across the board. It's shocking how much we're seeing right now as far as cost increases are concerned. In this case, this is the size of tractor. It works with the type of mower that we need. Pretty much a direct replacement for the one that we currently have that's, and it, you know, has reached the end of its service life. And so based on that, that's why we requested the quotes.
Who's the ER&R like person now? Who's the running that?
So currently that would be Lance Johnson. He's in an interim position right now as assistant for over sewer parks and ER&R. No, I'm sorry, it's Keith Proctor. Yeah, we did a switch last year, and ER&R is now under Keith Proctor, who does street storm and
So
ER&R.
he's kind of familiar with it.
He is.
Kind of what it came out of. He's like recommending that we.
So this recommendation actually would have been brought forward under Todd previously. Yeah.
Is there a chance the price would go down if we wait till like January to buy it?
It could go up.
It could go, yeah, I can't, I'm more fearful.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm more fearful it'll go up than it'll.
we got 30 days, right?
Your recommendation.
I am.
Okay.
So we have the money, it wasn't budgeted, and it's unavoidable.
We'll have the money. The only reason they come here is, you know, our food, right? You know.
I got that.
Otherwise, they
No, but
run
it's
their
in the
operation.
ER&R fund, it's not coming out of general. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, kind of, right? It's not, of course, but and it is because, well, because if it's not, you know, wasn't budgeted in the ER&R.
Right.
So, but there's money there. The money's there because it depends on things you're buying or whatever out of it.
Right.
But there's money. Okay, you can spend that money. But you know, in 2 years they're going to be like, hey, you know, our ER&R is kind of skimpy here. We need to like refill that.
Oh, God, remember you bought the mower?
It's important to remember that the ER&R fund is funded by the various departments and the payments they make back into that fund for vehicle. That's the difference. Next up is new HVAC for the JMC.
I find that kind of like, quaint.
There's a guy up there.
It's endearing almost, I can see the squirrels running around.
So that one's going to the consent agenda also?
That would be,
We always generally put things on when we put off that.
Right.
And the last item on the agenda apparently is the Allen Park Playground installation
oh yeah, this one will be the easy one,
part.
right?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think we got something to say on this one.
I'm sure. And I fully expected that. Frankly, I don't expect necessarily a decision coming out of this. But what I did want to do is provide the committee with all the different alternatives we're looking at, the costs involved.
That was awesome.
And it makes for quite a bit to chew on. I'm certainly here to answer any questions. You can see the different alternatives. None of them are cheap. They all have a pretty significant price tag.
Yeah.
But this is where we're at.
So the thing that kind of got me on this whole thing, looking at this, doing all this, what does an ADA playground mean, and how much do we want to spend on it? Right?
Sure.
So the first one is kind of a struggle for me, right? Because I look in Sumner at a couple other playgrounds, and all a couple other playgrounds, and then I look at other playgrounds like our own, right? It's wood chips, right?
Some of them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're different.
So then it's like, it mean, and what's the value? Yeah, so anyway, so for me, that was one of the big things I got out of this. And then the other one is this something that we want to consider just donating play set to the Reed property? Needs a playground, so put it there.
Good. Spent a lot of money on the park, but as a whole. What's Terry thinking?
That was my thought. We have somebody who's willing to, we're moving forward, right? So we have an opportunity to have them install it, and probably for much. Hey, you guys install this thing.
It'll be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, we don't worry about it. We have it
It won't
installed.
provide any it won't provide any our part.
Can we do?
Right.
That's,
Well, that'll be
way
Are you talking about
Front
installing
too.
it
Yeah.
at the new ball field 5, or are you talking?
No, I was talking about the Reed property.
Right.
I don't know how you can do it. I don't know if you can do it at anywhere where we're not seeing somebody property. That'd be a legal question. If we can have somebody else do that for us, because I don't think we.
Figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
In my mind,
I don't know.
If you want to do something different. I just don't know where.
I just had my thought was just basically like, hey, we're putting a bunch of fields out there. Why don't we put we've got a park thing to put out there. And we do that for free, essentially, when they put it out there. So you've got fields, you've got some place for the kids to play while their brothers and sisters or whatever are playing.
You got the same dimension.
So-
Field 5, right?
so food,
You do,
some
yeah.
food for thought
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah, but there is a place at not far from
Yeah,
Right.
but they're not where the parents are.
skate park and a tennis court.
so I can tell you from being on site, and several of the comments came when we had the ribbon cutting at the park, is that there are people excited about having a play area at Field 5. And I think it makes a lot of sense, much like we were describing. I mean, it's common sense. Of course, mom and dad show up, little Johnny's going to be out there playing, little Stevie gets to go play. I'll go play on the equipment, right? We've got a gaping hole there right now. And I really do feel that the best use of the funds we have available would be to get that hole filled and put something there that can be available. I'll be, honestly, none of these look great. We do have 80,000 in the documentation I read from Doug. I believe we've got the 80,000 available, or that was included in the budget for this. The engineered wood fiber is certainly an option. It's not one that I really am excited about or favor. I believe that it's, obviously an increase in maintenance over time. We're looking at replacement of the wood fiber about every 5 years. While our vendor does say it is considered ADA accessible, I do have my doubts there. I've never, seen how that works for somebody who does have a disability. But I do believe that the best solution here is to build that playground at Field 5. I would need to talk with Sherry a little bit more, but I believe that there are funds available in the park CIP budget, additional funds that could be made available to complete this effort. I would need to make sure and hammer that down with her. But I believe there would be enough there in conjunction with the 80,000 we already have to make any one of these solutions.
Did we buy the equipment from Game Time?
The equipment was purchased from Game Time, and it was.
Do we have a picture?
It was a grant.
It was a grant?
Yeah, we received, Game Time gave us money for the equipment through them. It was we purchased it through them, but it was through a grant.
Was that kind of at the same time as the RCO grant?
Correct.
It was.
So we'd have to even see if there's I don't know if we necessarily have to use that site, but we have to, I don't know what the.
We would want to check that just to be sure.
You kind of, designed that site around having that feature.
Right.
If you have your older kids that are playing on the field, and the parents that have the younger kids.
Except they put the
Right.
playground next to the parking, right? My wife was like,
Next to the parking lot?
Yeah.
It's on that little hill there.
I know, but it's like the parents are on the field watching Johnny play, and the kids are getting kidnapped out of the parking lot because it's right next to the parking lot, right next to the exit. And it's like, she was like, well, why'd they do that? I'm like, because they didn't ask you, did they?
Right,
Yeah, and I think it's no different than parents that are over on the beach and kids over the place.
Right, well, and so that was kind of the impetus for that, because we were like, we've suffered with that and with all right. So no, I'm not a fan of this right now unless we want to approve the 80. Right, I could find my way to saying yes to the wood chips. I can't find my way.
Yeah, so many of these are like, well, I definitely would like to think about it and see what we can do because, it's the last piece of that particular project kind of thing. But, some of these are like destination kind of things, and I hate to pull on people's heartstrings and stuff like that. But, the kids, and I hear this from the parents that are like, I was shocked when people are like, well, I go over to the Cedarview Park, it's like, well, why do you go over there? And it's like, well, Johnny, it's the only thing he wants to be on is that particular, thing that's there. It's not at the park or whatever. And it's like, or the digger that's over there at the Allen Road thing. And it's, oh, yeah, always love that, And the child's going to remember that. They're going to remember that, played on this place at this. Always kind of like heartstring kind of BS kind of stuff,
So acknowledging that it sounds like needs to be some more conversation, should we propose to table this for now and bring this back to a future CDC a couple weeks from now?
Or a workshop, is there a reason we can't talk about this workshop with a picture? Do we have a picture of the kind of stuff?
Sure, we can definitely furnish pictures and additional documentation.
That was the other question I was asking.
You guys convinced, however, because it's totally stuck because it's kind of like, well, I'm hearing like, we don't want to do it at all. And it's like, really? Wow, that's really like, and then it's like, well, maybe it costs too much, so you have some variation in the cost.
I think that was my deal of it. It's going to cost us X number of dollars. That seems ridiculous to get that thing put in.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we do something else kind of thing versus, oh, let's not do anything there or whatever. I think it's really expensive. And so, but if there's money for it and to do it and finish it out, I'm not necessarily opposed to those two. I can be convinced.
People convinced, I had some convincing to do it.
Say there's a chance.
Just like,
I don't think I'm ever going to be convinced it's worth $200,000.
Well, yeah,
you're just
a lot of money.
You're cheap.
I am cheap, and I don't hide that.
Yeah, I think that.
I don't hide it. I'm cheap.
Okay, we'll plan on a presentation workshop.
Okay. And the pictures would be great.